So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Terry Schaefer, who's going to moderate the panel. And again, thank you so much for your time and being here. We're excited to help you through this.
Thanks, Buddy. So as Buddy talked a bit about the RIA model, it allows the advisor the freedom to kind of define their service and their practice and then choose their technology and how they run their operation and what investments they're going to provide to their clients to give them the best service as they define it for their clients. So we'd like to expand on the discussion a little bit and talk with our industry experts and give you some information that will help you understand just how you define what your practice looks like and what sort of solutions and support are out there to help you in making these decisions and then actually, making the transition. There's a lot of technology in this space, as Buddy said, both individual solutions as well as, combined, ecosystems of, front-to-back platforms. And they've evolved tremendously over the last 10 years, especially the last 5 years with the investment in fintech. And so figuring out, how you navigate all that can be daunting, and, we hope to kind of cover some of that today and be able to answer some of your questions. As Buddy mentioned, we're just going to give its unbiased opinions and information to you, so we're not going to get into detail about each of the different platforms. And we'll be covering a lot of information at a higher level, but please know we have the contact information for our participants on the web here, and also we'll have it on our website and available through Oyster if you need it later. And please feel free to contact any of them or anybody here today who can, if you want some more information. So with that, I'm going to ask each of our participants to just introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their background, and we'll kick it off.
Okay, great. Thanks, Terry. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ray Adams. I'm the Regional Sales Vice President for TD Ameritrade Institutional, covering the Virginia, D.C., and Maryland markets. Conveniently enough, located here in Richmond, Virginia, so it wasn't a very long drive for me to get down here today. I've been in the business over 25 years, and I've been in the RIA custody space for about, 6.5, 7 years now, so look forward to our dialogue today.
I think Ray took most of what I was going to say here. Scott Coleman, I have as well been in the business for over 25 years, but I think I bring a little bit of perspective because I started out in this business as an advisor. I was in production at Smith Barney before Shearson and Citigroup and all that stuff back in the day, so I cut my teeth sitting on the same side of the table that many of you have. I joined Schwab, and I've been in my role as Business Development Officer in our D.C. Metro territory, which actually mirrors Ray's, for the better part of the past going on 13 years now. So appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thank you very much.
Ray.
Hi, I'm Kevin Gaston. I am a Strategic Relationship Manager at CUNA. I actually also started my career as an advisor at Morgan Stanley, $600 a day, 5 times. So that entire time I've been doing qualified sales, qualified plan sales, but then moved into more of a relationship manager role during the last few years. And so the last 3 years I've been working with advisors and their clients on the record-keeping side and helping them understand how to run a book and how to manage and build a practice and keep it together, especially with all the litigation and new rules and stuff coming along.
Hi, Kane Kennan. I work for Bank of New York Mellon, Pershing Advisor Solutions. And so unlike the other two, or really three here, I'm newer to the industry. 12 years with Pershing, all 12 years really spent with Pershing. I did cut my teeth for a year and a half with a boutique municipal bond broker-dealer. So I feel the 600 calls a day. I know what that experience is. But in those 12 years, I've spent a lot of time within our service and operations and helping to run our account management group. And I'm really, over the last 18 months, focused on new business development within the D.C. Metro, Virginia, Delaware area as well. I'm really excited to be here, and thanks to our hosts.
Great, thanks, Kane. So I'm going to kick it off and just start with Ray, if I could, on one of our first questions. So at a high level, can we talk about the salient points that advisors have to take into consideration in going from platform and services of a captive environment to an RIA independent, the things they need to think about, main points of differentiation between the two models?
Sure. Let me go with the stuff that Buddy said a few minutes ago, write that down and repeat it back to you. I think he covered a lot of the kind of higher level points, but I think what's most important to really get us started is it's what Buddy said, right? The ultimate decision to go to the RIA space really is twofold for someone that's in a captive environment today, right? So there's kind of two ways you can actually enter the RIA space. You can either be a captive employee today at one of the 4 major wirehouses or regional broker-dealer or a local small boutique broker-dealer shop, or as Buddy mentioned, you might already be an independent advisor today, have your name on the shingle, you run an independent business today, but you may want to explore the RIA model for various different reasons, and I'll get into that in just a second. But let's go back to the captive environment for a moment. To make that decision, really, there's two main fundamental things you have to think about. Number one is exactly what we said at the beginning of this dialogue is, do you want to be an independent business owner, right? Do you have the entrepreneurial DNA that it takes to run your own business, to build, construct, and run the business every single day? So when you go home at night, every night, you have to worry about, paying the electric bill and the accounting and all the other things you have to do in addition to being a successful investment advisor. So that's really first and foremost. And as we talk to advisors in the marketplace, that's the first thing I think all of us try to, get that ground with them right out of the gate is, do you want to be an independent business owner? If the answer is yes, then the next part of that discussion is the RIA model how you want to do it, right? Or do you want to do it, affiliated with an independent broker-dealer, or a combination of both, which would be the RIA hybrid model that Buddy mentioned earlier. An analogy I like to use when it comes to being captive advisor versus going RIA, it's almost like the same idea of, living in an apartment or owning a home, right? When you live in an apartment, you got a roof over your head, it's comfortable, the water's on, the lights work, right? But if something goes wrong, you're kind of beholden to the landlord to determine, can you paint inside the house? How much is rent? If something goes wrong, you're not really in 100% control of how that works. That changes, certainly, when you become a homeowner for the first time, right? Not only do you have full control over where you get your house or build your house, how you make it look, how you furnish it, paint it, so forth. But at the end of the day, build equity, right, which is something that's very important for advisors in their decision-making process to go independent, is building true saleable equity entity. While today, many advisors will say in a captive environment, I own my book of business, at the end of the day, that's obviously just not true. You really don't. And most of those wirehouses would tell you the same thing. Whether it's the independent BD model or the RIA space, that provides you that true opportunity to have equity ownership in a business entity. Regardless, though, if you do decide to buy that house, guess what you still have to do? You have to put all your stuff in a bunch of boxes, put it on the truck, and move it across the street, and we'll get to that in just a second. But if you look around right now in this environment, there is a massive migration going on of advisors coming into the RIA community. We saw some study, it was a 5-year study we saw the other day that said during this 5-year period, I think it was 2011 to 2016, that the wallet share, the market share amongst the 4 major wirehouses decreased by 11% during that 5-year period. During that same corresponding period in the RIA marketplace, wallet share increased by 38%. So you're kind of following the money, right? It's like many advisors are making that decision to either A, set up their own and run their own fee-only RIA, B, set up an RIA and still affiliate with a broker-dealer, or in some cases, we're seeing advisors that will leave either a captive environment or an independent broker-dealer environment and actually, roll up underneath an existing RIA that already has, kind of the infrastructure and the support and the operations and so forth. You kind of tuck into a shop that already has those resources available to you. But once you kind of make that decision to look at it and say the RIA marketplace and this model is, where I want to be, and that could be for various reasons. It could be the equity. It could be the regulatory environment. It could be that I want to have more independence and control and more objectivity for how I build and run my business, or any combination of all those type items. Once you've made that decision, then you have to think about all the other ancillary parts that you have to think about in becoming a business owner, right? And that is things like, payroll, technology system, the choice of custodian that you would actually partner with, to be that partner with you long-term in your business. These are all the salient points that you have to look at. And candidly, I think all the panel members here today provide, great resources, great support, and tools to help you do that. Let me take a pause here. Does anyone have any questions for me or anyone else on the panel on this topic right now? got to be one brave soul out there, I think. No? I see Walter Robertson back there. Walter, you want to come up with something?
So far, you're right on the mark.
Gotcha. Well, I think just in closing on that topic, and then obviously the rest of the panel can certainly add color. You know, certainly, as Buddy mentioned, becoming an entrepreneur, it's interesting because there can be fear or there can be excitement, right? There can be, you know, it can be a hassle or it can be an exciting challenge, right? It's the lens you look through. It depends on how you vision what you want your business to look like when you come through the other end, right? You have to transition the business, and everyone goes through that process that has to move, whether you go RIA, go independent BD, or even move to another, you know, captive wirehouse. That happens for every advisor that makes any level of change. But ultimately, you have to determine your own lens, right, and determine which model is going to be best for you. Candidly, and maybe selfishly, speaking on behalf of the RIA model, you know, there's all the right reasons in the world to do it as an advisor, right? I mean, the SEC-regulated investment advisory RIA world is the cleanest, most transparent, Buddy said, the simplest and simply regulated model that's out there. So if you are running advisory business where you're acting, whether it's discretionary or non-discretionary, and you are acting as a true fiduciary, always wanting to act in the best interest of your clients at all times, the RIA model is the only choice. It is the right model. It's kind of the pinnacle of all the investment advisory models that are in the marketplace. I know all of you are thinking about, you know, maybe looking at it, maybe you're already looking at it, or maybe looking at it here in the future. But I think those are more good topics to kind of to dovetail off of that. So I'll turn it over to anyone else who wants to add to that, I guess.
Scott, do you want to?
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. I think that Ray made some fantastic points that are well worth considering. And I would, the only thing I would really add to that is, for those that have been at their current employer for a number of years, and you can insert whatever number you want, whether that's 10, 25, 30 years, the simple reality is human nature to sort of have blinders. And the first step to understanding all the benefits, all the considerations, the pros and the cons of this space begin with allowing yourself to kind of take those blinders off to say, maybe I should at least inform myself, if not for me, maybe for my clients, as to what this model is. And I think it's potential that there might be some misconception along certain lines that people only move into this model exclusively because they're disenfranchised or disappointed with something. I think the more true reality to this is people aren't moving to this model because they want to run away from something, but they're running towards something. They want to build something, whether it's building equity, building a client service model that allows them to serve their clients even better than they do today, to access technology that can bring scalability and efficiency to their business, to think about organic and inorganic growth strategies as well. The last thing that I'll say, I guess, that ties into that is when you're speaking to anybody on this panel, this isn't a product sale. This is a consultative process, because we understand this is a concept that isn't something that you make at the flip of a coin. In some cases, I'm sure I can speak for most of us up here, our sales cycle is, if it's quick, it's 6 months, but typically it's 12, 18, 24 months, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of due diligence that you should be doing, and everybody up here is aligned in helping you make that best decision about your practice.
Great. I would say that a good way to look at it is to think about the difference between owning a franchise and starting a restaurant. So if you own a Subway, you have to follow their rules. So how much is it chasing you to follow their rules? You can't have liquor service at Subway. You know, you can't run it the way you might want to run it. So the more you see yourself wanting to see a different part of the business, maybe wanting to look at something, and actually I thought of one specific little thing, but it's literally that a lot of advisors who are at a place, a wirehouse, can't run the same strategy on their case side that they can run on their individual wealth management. That's just something they can't do. They say, I've got this great wealth management, but I can't give it to you until you pull out of the plan. RIAs can do that. I actually have some that do that same thing, where they run the same strategy on both sides of the house, and that's something I've not seen any wirehouse or BD really get together. So it's, if you like the franchise model and you enjoy selling exactly what's on the shelf, then that's probably not the right way to look. But if you ever want to run it your way, I think that's the way to really say that maybe this is where I need to head.
Yeah, I'll just one more finer point to that is that you mentioned selling, and I think it's as you shift from the that captive model to a more independent model, you're an economic buyer. You're an economic buyer for all of the things that are important for running your business. and you're a buyer for your clients. You become a professional buyer on behalf of your clients. So you're selecting the investment solution that you think is most appropriate for your client base and what they need. And so I think that's really one of the drivers that we see when we're talking with advisors who are thinking about this. Really clues us into, are they serious? Is that they're doing this because there's a motivation to drive for a better experience for their clients, whether that's on the investment side, the service side, access to new and different products that aren't available in their current environment.
Great, thank you. So another point, very early on in your process of, considering RIA, you're doing an evaluation of your book and you're looking at, okay, how much BD business do I have? How much advisory business do I have? What sort of products are people invested in? Are they proprietary products in my firm? Do I manage my own portfolios? So, in doing this, there are questions that are going to come out that we, from you that are going to say, okay, what happens if I want to go RIA, but I do have a large amount of custody business, brokerage business, or, what if I do use a lot of proprietary products? How do I access those products or similar types of portfolios, investments, in the RIA world? So, Kane, if you could just kind of give some insight into, what people do in those sort of situations.
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to. So this is a very common question, I think, for any advisor who has some portion of their existing revenue that hasn't converted to fee already, although more in the independent channel, we're seeing that a larger or more majority of those advisors probably have converted some portion of their book to fee. But for those who are still maybe in a more captive environment, are still deriving most of the revenue from a mutual fund seed class share or an annuity business or some other insurance product and a traditional transactional commission business, this is a big consideration because there is not only the aspect of potentially having to shift to a fee-based business and the RIA model, and lose some of that revenue. So there are options, and we've talked about, and Ray pointed out a number of the options that you could go with, whether that's a regional broker-dealer or the corporate RIA that you could step into and potentially have the ability to have that kind of duly registered model. You could have a hybrid model where you have a broker-dealer that you affiliate with. You start your own RIA and run or convert as much of that fee business that you'd like to the RIA and still have access to the same brokerage product you may have had and access to the revenue so that it's an easier transition for you. There are also situations that we come across where an advisor says, I'm not really focused on the commission business. It's more of an accommodation. There's a piece of this business that I have for a large family or some other client it's really important to them that we keep this kind of on a transactional basis. I don't really manage the assets. It's maybe some legacy stock holdings or some concentrated positions. What can we do in that situation? And I would say that, across the board, you really could do that within your RIA. You don't necessarily have to, affiliate with a broker-dealer to hold a traditional type of transactional business. You're not going to be getting any of that transactional revenue off of it, but you weren't presumably doing that anyway. So you can still convert that to the RIA model, hold that within the custodian, and just not charge it. Custodians are flexible in how you bill your clients, whether that's on a transactional or a fee base. And so I think the point there is that there's a lot of flexibility and really a lot of optionality for you as an advisor to take those existing assets that you have, your clients' assets, and convert them into an RIA model. You would up front want to make sure you vet out all of the investment management solutions. So if you have access to third-party money managers or proprietary product within a wirehouse that you're concerned about, there are a lot of alternatives out there that are available to you. Managed account programs, you can build your own, you can leverage one that's existing, and again, all of the various models, whether that's tucking into an existing RIA, building your own RIA, affiliating with a friendly broker-dealer, you have the flexibility to take those products, those concerns off the table. That you can run the business you do today in the independent model, and I think anyone on this panel would be able to say the same words.
Anybody else want to comment on that, or can I
Go this way, or sure. I just have one quick on it. Just on the qualified plan space, we're already doing way anyways. I think every major broker-dealer that we deal with no longer is accepting 12B1s. If they haven't already, they're moving to a level commission, if not a level comp structure. So realistically speaking, it's probably the most portable piece of the business. You've got tickers, they're all traded. There's very few positions I see in most qualified plans that cannot be moved to an RIA model where you're charging a fee for service. So I think it's it's getting more portable, and as we stop taking commissions from a 12B1 trailer, I think it's all going to move that way anyways.
Yeah, I echo much of what has been said. But what I would also add to that is to aid in that process. This isn't guesswork that you have to do on your own. Again, from the custodial provider perspective, we're going to be helping out well in advance of any planned or proposed move by doing things like portability analyses, manager matches, mutual fund matches, et cetera. And in the rare event that there might be something that you own today that is mission critical for your launch, and the custodian doesn't have it for some reason, we'll ensure that it's added well in advance of your move. So there's no guesswork to this. All of the dark corners are going to have light shown on it long before you ever say yes to any of us as far as that goes. The last thing I would say is the model also, the RIA model, lends itself to a lot of flexibility into how you charge fees and what kind of fees that you charge. The name of the game, the bottom line, and I'm glad that Buddy's here because this really will resonate because of his presence, it's about disclosure. So as long as you're disclosing what you do and how you do it in your ADV, it's game on as long as it's within the limits of the law, and that's what you're paying Buddy for anyway. But as far as that goes, to echo what Kane said, there isn't anything that you're doing today from a business perspective in a wirehouse or in an IBD that you cannot do in the RIA channel.
And we are going to cover a little bit more of this topic in our compliance section as well, just so people are aware.
Okay, great. Well, the only thing I would add to that is just, I think a lot of advisors out there have this misnomer when they look at the RIA space about what we just talked about, right? They look and say, well, I've got this non-discretionary business or low-basis taxable stock that the client's never going to sell. And they look at it and say, well, I don't know if I want to bring that to the custodian because that's not going to benefit the custodian at all. Well, the difference is between a broker-dealer and a custodian is, you don't work for us. It doesn't matter to us how much fee revenue you generate for the clients that you bill, right? We generate our revenue based on the type of business you have on our platform, right? So we encourage advisors that are going through that entire segmentation process and review analysis of their book of business in making this determination, and as part of the transition process, to try to find ways where you can consolidate where you can, because sometimes what you'll find in a brokerage environment versus the RIA world is you have the ability to really kind of, segment and consolidate a lot of your existing business. Some broker-dealers will require you to have multiple accounts for the same, family registration because there's an alternative investment in one account. It's got to be held separately, or you can't have this model in this discretionary program. So you have these kind of bifurcated households, right? In the RIA space, you're allowed to consolidate a lot of that, whether you bill on it, whether you don't bill on it, whether it's discretionary or non-discretionary. It just allows you to simplify your business a lot more and make the business smaller, if that makes sense, in regards to how you manage it.
Thanks. So as we've talked about, there are a lot of technology solutions that are available, or platforms and services out there. And it can be daunting, and while it gives you a lot of freedom to set up your practice the way you want it to operate for you, it kind of leaves you with a lot of things to evaluate and decisions to make. So I was just going to ask the panel to talk a bit about what's at the core of the custodial platforms. Pretty much there's, core levels of service, but there's also a lot of other than technology that you can add to that core level of service that'll help you run your business. And, that stuff that kind of aligns with the advisor's world. There's also then, things you have to think about like a GL system or, payroll system. So I was just going to ask if the panel to just talk a little bit about, the baseline platform, what it provides, and then where advisors, go to get information on other services, what other providers are out there that kind of help with services as well as some of the technology. And I'll ask Scott to take.
Sure. Well, thank you. And I think that, a lot of what we just talked about is a really nice segue, especially since we talked about simplification and the ability to do some things that are probably outside your abilities today. And so technology is one of those things that I always consider to be sort of the the great leveler of the playing field for RIAs, because while the wires can puff their chests out about talking about their IB skills and IPOs and all that wonderful stuff, they fall woefully short on the technology side of the equation. And so when you think about existence at a wirehouse or at an independent broker-dealer, the reality is technology has been prefabricated, preordained, you didn't have a choice in it, and very little customization, certainly none on the wirehouse side, maybe slightly more customization on the IBD side of the world, but at the end of the day, you walked into the office, as Buddy said in the beginning, you turn your light on, you turn your computer on, and there's everything in my little world. And as we've brought advisors to independence over the years that we've all been involved in doing so, you kind of tend to find that technology is something that really opens up their eyes, because instead of having something that's prefabricated where there's, again, limited functionality, what I'll say is there's two things I always hear from advisors that wind up making the move to this space, and that is when I ask them to think about technology where they are today, the response is typically, it does a lot of things okay, but none of them particularly well. And then the other reaction is an industry term, and they usually say, it sucks. So when you think about what that technology is, what you can avail yourself of as an RIA, that's uncharted territory where you go, well, this is great. All these wonderful things designed to help me streamline my business, add efficiency, reduce man and woman hours off of what I do, as well bring more functionality. We'll come into that in just a second. But you start to then say, or what I used to do with my technology consultants when we meet with a prospective advisor, we'd start out that technology conversation by saying, the good news is you have choice. The bad news is you have choice. And again, a common refrain to that from an advisor is, well, I don't know what I don't know. That's our job, to enlighten, to bring to your attention all the things that might help you, again, better serve your clients, better manage your business, create more free time doing the client-facing things that you'd rather be doing. And so what an infrastructure might look like, well, maybe before I get there, you asked what a custodian provides. At the core, a custodian is going to provide an advisor interface, a day-to-day website that you'll be able to do things like transact in your client accounts, money movement, research, alerts, things that might cause potential issues, flare-ups with accounts. We let you know in advance of what's going on, a potential bounce check, things of that nature. So while a custodian will certainly provide you a basic interface, the rest of that ecosystem, which was a great word, by the way, earlier, usually consists of some sort of combination of CRM, so contact management software, portfolio accounting and performance reporting, usually by the same provider. That's almost a synonymous term, and I'll break down the differences between the two, and maybe financial planning software. There's other ancillary things as well, depending on the type of firm that you run, or maybe a trade order management system if you're doing high volume trades, a la a money management firm would do. Again, a big rabbit hole we could go down, but if we kind of stick to that core environment, we realize then that, okay, again, when I come out of a mortgage, when I come out of an LPL, and I'm used to something like BranchNet, the world is my oyster now, but I don't know what to do. So when you think about what Ray does and what Kane does, and perhaps to some degree what Kevin does, I'm going to let y'all answer. All right, well, good deal. So it is our job to help educate, to bring to light why these providers might avail you of all the things we talked about again, right? Which is, again, the efficiency, the ability to be in front of your clients. And so the CRM, that's pretty basic, right? That's going to be where the main contact management information resides about a client. So if I was the client, you might find that my wife's name is Tracy, he has triplets that are 13, and the two boys play this, and my daughter does that. That's where your environment tends to be, as opposed to being locked into what a custodian's website should look like. We also believe that there should be a good amount of integration between all these disparate pieces that talk to each other. So we believe that the custodial interface should talk to the CRM, which should also then talk to the portfolio accounting and performance reporting mechanism. So to go back to what Kane said, when we were talking about the idea of commingling historical brokerage assets with advisory assets, remember, as Ray said, a custodian is largely agnostic to how you bill your clients. A custodian isn't charging anything until there's a transaction made. So when we have that highly appreciated cost basis stock, or the low cost basis stock, I should say, and we want to hold that in the same account with the core investments that you're otherwise running, well, again, pick one of the wirehouses. You can't do that at a wirehouse today, because the way that they calculate their fees and run those methodologies. It will include all those assets. Well, if you want to hold that below the line piece, they say, no, you've got to move that to a commissionable account. Well, no, there's extra costs associated with that. 2 accounts, it's clunky, it's kludgy, it's all those things that you don't like. Because of the efficacy of portfolio accounting and performance reporting providers, you can easily hold all those pieces in one account. Additionally, you can provide value-added services to your clients that you don't today. You can aggregate assets. So when there's the plan through CUNA, or there's a principal 401k or a Hartford annuity that doesn't reside at your custodian, think of what portfolio accounting, performance reporting software does. It acts like a hub that sends its spokes out into those disparate providers. So you can now provide a holistic performance report for your client's entire financial sphere, regardless of if you run those assets or not. So think of the value that that can bring to you as an advisor in helping to serve that client. And then again, if financial planning is something that's a piece of your business, well, there's a lot of great providers, some even local, but again, we believe that all of these systems should be talking to each other, providing, in most cases, real-time data flow between the two. So to know that you can go into your CRM, and instead of putting a client on hold and having to go to a file cabinet and pull out the most recent statement or the most recent performance report that you sent them, it's all there in front of your face. It's saving you literally hours off of your day. So the RIA model is very friendly to technology. Technology expands in a very explosive way. And the technology that we're talking about today will look different 3 months from now because everybody is continually adding, making refinements. But at the end of the day, the custodian is your partner to help you kind of vet that. We all have technology personnel agnostic to other providers to give you the most transparent and objective advice about constructing that best-in-breed system.
You want to add anything, Ray?
Yeah, just one thing to add. That's great. One thing to add to that, when you look at, like, in your current environment today, right, everything you have, whether you want it or need it, is bundled together and it's in one system. It's kind of a one-size-fits-all, cater to the lowest common denominator. Everyone gets the same sauce, right? That's the way generally technology platforms are structured in the broker-dealer community. And you look at us in the RIA custody space and you say, well, gosh, you guys don't, you don't have planning as part of your platform. You don't have portfolio management as part of your platform. You don't have contact management. Why are you guys like that? It's like that by design. It's like that on purpose. And it's mostly like that because RIAs have told us that's the way they want it. Because when I think of the word independent, the things that come to my mind, and maybe harkening back to my childhood days, is if you're independent, I want to do it my way, and no one's going to tell me how to do my job, right? That's the way it is in the RIA space. There's so many different third-party vendors out there, and all the different custodians give you that choice and objectivity to make your own bundle, right? We don't want to hold ourselves out as experts in the financial planning software space. That's not what we do. But there are plenty of good third-party vendors out there that do it and do it extremely well. So advisors have told us by design, we don't want you guys to bundle, your own proprietary solutions and assume you know what I need or want. We want the advisor to have that ability to go out into the competitive marketplace, vet through, and look at whatever choices they deem appropriate to build their own tech stack. And all of us on the panel here help you through that consultative process with our resources. So you're not on your own. It's not this, analysis to paralysis type thing. You're like, oh my gosh, now I got all these other decision points I have to make in the technology space. That's part of what our partnership value is to advisors looking to go RIA.
They covered a lot of it. We'll provide the consultancy. We don't leave you hanging. This is a partnership. I think Scott said it up front. This is a consultancy here. It's not we're not selling you a business, how to run your business. We're gonna bring the right people and choices in front of you to make those decisions.
And there are other firms too that are bundled in with technology that will take on some of the services, like help you or get your billing set up or handle a lot of your billing functions, handle a lot of your portfolio accounting, reconciliation. So there's a lot of options, and again, they all kind of know who all these providers are and can, find out your specific needs and, help guide you all through the process. So we wanted to talk a little bit, since we've got an expert here in the retirement spaces, talk a little bit about, retirement accounts. And I wanted to ask Kevin, so what's changed over the last few years in the managing retirement plans for advisors? There's been a lot of changes in the DOL over a few years, not just the recent things that have happened, and in the way advisors are managing and supporting their obligations. to the plan sponsors and to the plan participants, and what's viewed as best practice, and where do you see it headed? You mentioned a little bit before where you see it heading for reps in the future, but just where it's going from here.
Okay, so I'm going to go with that starting backwards, and the question of where is it going. It's going to change dramatically in the next 3 to 5 years, probably in the next year. And what I'm already seeing is, if you're at a wirehouse, they're trying to tell you at a basic point the minimum you can make, the required revenue on a size plan. It's always done by assets. It's not done by head count. It's not done by number of locations, complexity of the plan design requirements, nothing. It's done by purely, if it's $10 million, the minimum you can charge is 25 basis points. So I've gotten to go around the country and watch some good advisors lose plans where the RIA comes in and says, I'm going to do it for 15 because it's an easy plan. You're stuck at 25. That's the end of the story. There's no way to explain the difference except for my firm says if I go to 20, I take a haircut and I can't go to 15. I just can't compete there. That's a big challenge, and I'm not sure how the wirehouses are set up to tackle that going forward, but that's going to be the big challenge. The second thing RIAs can bring to the table that, again, I'm not seeing, not as much in the independent broker-dealers, especially in the wires and the regional broker-dealers, is I'm seeing a move to flat dollar for plans. I'm seeing a move to head count. That's per participant, and they're saying the difficulty doesn't go up if your account balance goes up. So the classic asset-based charge of we charge X many bits on your plan regardless, and the bigger the plan, the less we charge. Well, the bigger the plan, the less you charge per bit, but the same, you're charging more in overall fees. I think that model is going to have a hard time continuing forward as they're starting to really dig into the granular level. How hard is it when Joe gets in the plan to record keep Joe? There's a fixed cost to record keep a plan, and then an individual person, how many loans, how many distributions, and it's going to get much more accurate to the features of each plan and the pricing. So if you're not in a place where you can bill by head count or you can bill by flat, or I've seen a few go by billable hours where they're taking on almost the law firm model of saying we spent 28 hours on your plan this quarter times X dollars, that's our fee. But if you're not able to move and be flexible in that, you're going to have a hard time moving forward. I think that's probably the biggest piece as far as everything going is pricing. The next one is simplicity. Everyone's moving towards institutional. They're moving towards, again, we said this earlier with my colleague Greg, you're bringing the Fortune 500 retirement plan features downstream. That's all we've been doing in the last 10 years. So you had CITs at a big plan. Now you have them in small plans. You had auto enrollment, auto escalate, auto everything. All that's coming down, layering it in with your HSA, layering it in with your student loans, layering in the different financial wellness tools, it's all coming downstream. If you don't have that technology on board and you're not able to keep up with that, then I think it's going to be pretty challenging. I also see that the big teams are coming downstream and they're getting profitable. So that's kind of where I see it headed. Of the other parts of it, I think the best practices are really a lot, even as in wherever you are, if you're running retirement plans, knowing your profitability, knowing what your book looks like and how you're going to try and manage that, especially if you're going to go into the RIA model. You need to make sure you know how to service, to do education, to help them with qualified pieces. I think a lot of wealth managers kind of stumble into, they've got that wealthy client, they have a K plan, hey, can you run that for me? Sure. I know nothing about qualified plans. I've never really done this business, but I know mutual funds. I'll take your side. Knowing that plan business or finding someone to roll into your RIA or joining into one that's a K-plan expert space or maybe attaching in some way, it's going to almost become necessary. At this point, when I go out on meetings, the questions coming up are not just, oh, how did the funds do? It's, hey, we've got this sleeve of people who aren't participating. We're worried that they're never going to be able to retire. It's going to drive up the cost of our healthcare census. When people don't retire on time, we have to pay more for medical. We have to pay more for group life, health, and disability. So how can we get people out of it on time? And that's where the technology kicks in, but it's also where you're going to need to have that expertise or bring in the experts. Now, from a platform side, most of the people on my side of the world, the record keepers, are going to have someone like me who's trying to help them as they consolidate that book and start working with less providers. And that's, again, something else we're seeing is we used to see the off-the-shelf pricing. Who's the cheapest? You take it out to 12 bids, and whoever's the cheapest, you pick it. Suddenly you've got 70 plans with 27 different providers. I think that model is going to go down to having less providers, having less, I think that's kind of the broker-dealer model, just picking everything. I've got some of this fund, some of that fund. The wholesaler from this annuity came in last week, so I'm using it for this rate for this month. I think you're going to start seeing that contract in as people say, I need real partnerships, whether that's on the investment side, the custodian side, or the record-keeping side, because they want to be able to
have someone who's helping them along the way as they continue to build and maintain that practice.
That's great. Thank you. I think we're going to leave some time so we can ask questions.
Yeah. Does anybody in the room or online have questions for the group? Teresa?
I was wondering if the new tax laws, there's lots of gossip in the paper about how it's going to impact 401ks, and if anyone's drawn a conclusion on that yet.
A few people actually have started drawing some conclusions. I'd say that actually the case base isn't going to be as effective as we think. That first initial proposal where they're going to Rothify 401k, that frightening $3,600 cap they were going to do, I literally read that on the email that morning, turned my computer back off and said, I need more coffee. This thing is not happening. I'm going back to bed. And then they got rid of that, so thankfully that happened. But on the flip side, there is again, as I see plans getting smarter and adding more things, you're seeing more cash balance. But what you're seeing a lot of those we'll call non-qualified deferred comp plans. Now that's a place where pass-through income is a big deal because of how the structure of a non-qualified deferred comp. So you have a plan, you're a manufacturing company, you've got 20 people in administration who are highly comped, you've got 60 people out there who never participate higher than 5%, and no matter what you do, you can't get them there. You're locked at how much you can put away. The non-qualified deferred comp plan used to be more niche. It's going to change as that pass-through income, or you're a sole practitioner, it's going to change the taxability of that. So I think that's where you're going to see some of the analysis coming forward, but the general consensus is it's going to probably be benefited from the tax law because it's reducing that taxable rate. But on the qualified plan side, I'm not seeing a lot of running to the hills so far.
And Trish, just as an add-on to that, it'd be interesting to see how some of this pass-through stuff might impact independent business owners. When you think about being a captive W-2 advisor employee today versus what some of the pass-through advantages might be on how you structure your business entity if you become an independent advisor, that's something, I don't think we have all the details of what that's going to look like just yet, but that's an interesting wrinkle to think about as part of the overall due diligence process. If I may, there was, you brought up something very important related to the retirement plans around billing and structure and how you charge clients. I think we'd be remiss not to cover this in our dialogue today. It's something also to think about in the RIA space for your traditional private clients, right? I think, traditionally you think about a wirehouse and independent BD structure, that they kind of give you the sandbox to play in on how you charge clients. And all of us that have been around the business long enough have grown up in the investment advisory world to think about, well, you charge a management fee based on a percentage of assets, right? That's the way you charge an advisory fee to an advisory client. Well, over time, think about this. If the only measurement that client has on you is a percentage of the assets under management, then they only have one lever to measure you by, and that's performance, right? So what we're seeing, and you have this in the RA world, is the flexibility to set your pricing structure as long as it's fair and reasonable by the SEC, and I'll let Buddy slap me on the wrist if I say something wrong here, but as long as it's fair and reasonable by the SEC, you can really structure that as long as what you have in your ADV is congruent with the way you run your business. You can think about other ways to value your business, right? So if you're charging a client today 100 basis points for investment advisory, well, you're doing a lot more than just money management, right? It could be cash management, it could be estate planning, it could be risk mitigation, it could be, a host of tax. There's a host of different things you could be doing. So what we're seeing a lot of advisors do in the RIA space is kind of rethink and reshape the way they actually present their value to their end client and how they structure that in their billing structure. So whether it's through charging hourly fees for financial planning or a flat fee for financial planning, whether it's breaking down their management fee for the separate components that exist within it. There's a lot of competitors out there today. You've got digital advice solutions at 15, 20 basis points. You have Vanguard, all these different places out there that compete against you. And so we're seeing a lot of advisors think about taking their fee structure and making it more transparent for their end client to understand and say, well, listen, I'm charging you 100 overall, but I'm not just managing your money. Maybe that's 45 basis points of the 100, but I'm also doing this and this and this. These are the other ancillary real benefits that I give you as a full-service registered investment advisor. So just some food for thought to think about when you walk away from the meeting today.
If I could add just one thing on that, because I was thinking something on that same point. Another thing to think about is what this is coming down to is if your fee-for-service model that you were doing, if you're doing just asset-based management and you have that issue about performance, that means that you have a brand problem.
And when you're comfortable at a wirehouse, your brand is already advertised for you. How many commercials do you see from Morgan, Merrill, whatever? They tell you, you leverage our experience of 500,000 people across the globe from Taiwan to Australia. When you're an RIA, it's you. You're your brand. So one thing I've done with a lot of advisors, I said, let me look at your LinkedIn. And their LinkedIn says, I do stocks, bonds, insurance, this. I'm like, no, get to what is your value? Trading stocks isn't your value. Understanding risk mitigation is your value. Managing, helping estates. So I think if you can get your fees and show them that you're showing a brand, that starts becoming something you can actually market. And I would imagine that's a challenge if you're going out on your own is, what's your brand? If your brand is money managing only, then you're as good as what you did, the hot dog. Wherever you are on there, that's your brand. Your brand last year was underperformed. I don't want that brand. But if your brand is, I'm doing all these things for you, then now they can say, okay, well, the performance wasn't amazing that year, but they also help me with these other 5 aspects that I really need in my life. I think that helps you be able to go out there and compete.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. All right.
Well, thank you. Just so everybody knows that any further questions you can contact, we'll have the contact information available for everybody here, and feel free to reach out to any of the participants if we can give you more information.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.